Less than 7 minutes. That's all it would take for Iran's Fattah hypersonic missile to reach U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Tehran claims it can exceed Mach 15 and maneuver fast enough to slip past advanced interceptors. If true, this isn't just another missile. It's a direct strike threat against the backbone of American air power in the Gulf. For decades, the U.S. counted on early warning and interception. Hypersonics turn that margin into less than 400 seconds. So the question isn't just whether the missile works, it's whether America can stop it, the Fattah one revealed. In June 2023, Iran threw down a gauntlet on the world stage by unveiling its first hypersonic missile, a weapon unlike anything the country had loudly displayed before. Billed by Tehran as a generational leap in missile technology, the Fattah 1 is a 12-meter, 4,500-kilogram two-stage missile that can reach speeds around Mach 13 to 15 and flying up to about 1,400 kilometers. This range could put major Israeli cities like Tel Aviv, as well as U.S. military bases such as Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar and Naval Support Activity Bahrain, the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet and U.S. Naval Forces Central Command, within striking distance. According to Iran's military, this weapon isn't a typical ballistic missile, but a hypersonic system designed to maneuver in flight and evade missile defenses. This is a much harder target for shields such as Israel's Iron Dome and other regional interceptors. Iran has said that it could hit Tel Aviv in just 400 seconds, and that has put the entire region on edge. Some are still skeptical about this new missile and say that its hypersonic label is up for debate and its exact performance is being evaluated. But its deployment in strikes against Israel in 2024 and 2025 has revealed how important it is and has raised global concern over the new weapon in Iran's armament. The unveiling of the Fattah 1 marked a visible expansion of Iran's strategic reach. But what makes it especially special is its impressive speed, creating a superheated plasma. Before we discuss the cutting-edge features of Iran's hypersonic weapon, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more coverage on the weapons from around the world. Mach 15 reality. When a missile rockets through the sky at hypersonic speeds, above Mach 5, the air around it gets torn apart by heat and pressure, turning into a glowing sheath of ionized gas called plasma. At Mach 13 to 15 for Iran's Fattah 1 missile, this effect becomes extreme. The air molecules in front of the warhead are superheated and stripped of electrons, forming a bubble of plasma that can reach temperatures and densities that are high enough to interact strongly with radar waves. The plasma layer absorbs and scatters the incoming radar signals, reducing the amount of energy that reflects back to tracking systems and making the fast-moving weapon harder to detect and follow with conventional radar. At the same time, the intense heat generated by friction at those speeds would normally destroy unprotected hardware. But hypersonic vehicles like this one are engineered with thermal protection and structural design. It can withstand fierce conditions while maintaining velocity and guidance. This missile combines extreme velocity in the superheated plasma cocoon, so by the time the opponent's system spots the hypersonic missile, it has little time to respond, and the conventional interceptors might struggle to track and target it effectively. If the Fattah 1 missile is already screaming through the sky at Mach 15, a new question emerges. Once something is moving that fast, how does it steer itself? Well, it is engineered to do more than just go fast. With its thrust vectoring warhead, it can carry out impressive maneuvers, making it hard for the opponents to intercept them. Maneuvering warhead. When the Fattah 1's main booster throws it toward its target at speeds claimed to exceed Mach 13 to 15, the warhead that separates for the final leg actively steers itself, and that steering is made possible by its thrust vectoring warhead. Instead of following a predictable ballistic arc that makes interception calculations simple, the warhead is equipped with a small rocket motor and a movable nozzle system that can change the direction of its thrust. This means the warhead can adjust its flight path mid-course or in the terminal phase, creating a flight trajectory that bends and twists compared to what a normal ballistic missile would do. At hypersonic velocities, even minor course adjustments can dramatically shift a missile's path because the forces involved are so large, and defenders aiming to shoot it down only have seconds to react. Once it's detected, the thrust vectoring mechanism uses precise control of the engine's exhaust direction. Basically, it pushes the warhead sideways or up and down while it's still traveling incredibly fast. This complicates radar tracking and interceptor engagement. This technology doesn't match the missile impossible to stop, but it raises the difficulty sharply for defense systems that rely on predicting an inbound weapon's flight path. In conflict, that unpredictability can be the difference between a defensive system locking one early and one scrambling too late. But aside from the impressive thrust vectoring, Iran's new hypersonic missile offers the highest defense penetration today, making it easy to stand off against America's missiles. Better defense penetration. When it comes to defeating modern missile defenses, the Fattah 1 doesn't rely on brute force alone. Instead, it exploits the very assumptions those systems were built on. Air defense networks. Like Israel's Iron Dome, David's sling and arrow systems are layered and highly capable. At the same time, they are optimized for predictable flight patterns and known engagement windows, tracking missiles and then calculating where to intercept them before they reach their targets. A weapon that flies fast and unpredictably can seriously complicate that process. The missile's combination of hypersonic speed and maneuverability means it usually zips through detection and tracking phases before defenders have enough time to respond. Instead of following a standard high-arc trajectory, it maintains hypersonic velocity and can adjust its path during the mid-course and terminal phases. This undermines the predictive trajectory models that missile defense radars depend on. Reports from the recent Iran-Israel clashes have revealed that some of these missiles have successfully penetrated layers of Israeli air defense. After all, the defenders have a limited number of interceptors and must prioritize which threats to engage. Hypersonic weapons fly so quickly and with such potential to shift direction that even systems like Arrow, built to counter ballistic missiles, can struggle to calculate an engagement solution in time. It's not that the defenses are useless, but the speed and evasive flight of a hypersonic missile greatly reduces the window for detection, tracking, and interception. If Fattah 1's blistering speed and evasive path already strain the world's most advanced defense networks, the real trick lies in how unpredictable its flight becomes by the time it's closing on a target. What happens when that trajectory no longer looks like a straight line anyone can draw? Unpredictable trajectory. The cone of uncertainty around where the missile might be headed is exactly what makes this weapon such a headache for the militaries around the world. When intercepting a missile, the predictability of its flight path is half the battle, but Fattah 1's design upends decades of defense assumptions. Traditional ballistic missiles soar high into space and arc back down in a trajectory that radar and fire control systems can calculate within moments of launch, allowing defenders to predict where the weapon will be seconds before impact. This hypersonic missile, however, combines sustained hypersonic velocity with active maneuvering during its mid-course and terminal phases, meaning it doesn't simply follow a single neat curve towards its target. Instead, it can change direction, even late in flight, and this spreads out the range of possible paths it might take. This creates what analysts describe as a cone of uncertainty rather than a sharply defined line of travel. This unpredictable envelope has real tactical implications. Missile defense systems work by detecting an incoming threat and then using its track position and speed to compute an intercept point. When that threat can warp its trajectory at hypersonic speed and adjust altitude while flying lower in the atmosphere, the mathematics of interception become far more complex. For defenders, the result is a widening set of potential impact vectors instead of a single predicted target location. That means radars, interceptors, and command systems are forced to engage with far less certainty. Hey, if you're still watching, you're probably just as curious about Iran's new hypersonic missile as I am. Before we dive into the test results, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me whether you think this missile can threaten the US. Propulsion, payload, and guidance. Iran's Fattah 1 missile combines systems that are designed to push capability toward survivability and precision rather than sheer force. The missile's propulsion comes from a two-stage solid fuel system, with the first stage lofting the weapon into its flight path and second stage keeping the re-entry vehicle at hypersonic speed during much of its trajectory. Solid fuel is important to this missile. Unlike liquid propellants that require complex handling and longer launch preparation, solid propellant allows rapid acceleration, simpler logistics, and a more road-mobile launch setup. At the heart of this missile is the maneuverable re-entry vehicle. It doesn't only alter its flight path mid-course, but it also carries a meaningful payload. Its warhead capacity is around 350 to 450 kilograms, enough for substantial conventional explosive effects and compatible with other types of warheads if Iran decides to pursue alternatives. To ensure that this fast, hard-to-track weapon actually hits what it's aimed at, it uses a hybrid guidance system combining inertial navigation, INS, with global navigation satellite inputs, GNSS, such as GPS or GLONASS. This combination lets the missile refine its targeting throughout flight, yielding relatively tight accuracy for a medium-range weapon. Together, these elements transform the Fattah 1 from a simple rocket to a complex strike platform that can challenge many countries. Analysts are saying that this might be a threat to the U.S. in the area of aerial warfare. How does Iran's new hypersonic missile threaten the U.S. Air Force? Threat to the U.S. Although Iran's hypersonic missile might not be capable of striking the continental United States, it's changing how U.S. military planners think about deterrence, defense, and power projection. Its 1,400-kilometer range places American bases in the Middle East, including installations in Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and areas where carrier strike groups operate, within the reach of its hypersonic weapons. What's more, these locations won't have a lot of time to detect, track, and respond. This capability matters because the United States has long relied on air dominance and layered missile defense networks to protect both its forces and regional allies. A hypersonic threat like this missile might affect this dominance by challenging existing radars and interceptors, and by compressing the reaction window for U.S. assets. Beyond just physical damage, the mere possibility of a missile that can approach at speeds of Mach 13 to 15 with maneuverability forces U.S. commanders into tougher decisions. How to reposition assets, when to preempt an attack, and how much to invest in new tracking and defense systems. The psychological impact of a weapon that could theoretically threaten an aircraft carrier or a major airbase, even if its effectiveness against the full suite of U.S. defenses isn't fully proven, shifts strategic calculations. The U.S. counterattack. As hypersonic threats like Iran's missile began to emerge on the world stage, the United States isn't idle. It launched a full-spectrum counterattack to regain the edge in both offense and defense. On the offensive side, Washington has moved aggressively into its own hypersonic weapons programs. The Army's long-range hypersonic weapon, now officially designated Dark Eagle, is expected to deliver high-speed strikes against time-critical targets deep into contested zones, with a mobile launcher system and a common hypersonic glide body designed to defeat advanced defenses. At the same time, the Air Force is pushing the Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile forward as a lower-cost, air-launched option that can ride under the radar and saturate hostile airspace, backed by significant budget requests in recent Pentagon spending plans. On the defensive side, the U.S. is pursuing one of the most ambitious missile tracking and interception programs in its history, the Golden Dome Initiative. Announced by senior defense officials, Golden Dome aims to build a constellation of satellites and sensors to give the United States birth-to-death tracking of incoming missiles, including hypersonic vehicles, and lays the groundwork for space-based interceptors that could neutralize them before they threaten U.S. territory. Together, these programs represent a high-stakes gamble that can keep pace with Iran's new missile technology, but also ensure that the U.S. retains its strategic dominance in an age where speed and precision are more important than battlefield advantage. But Iran's hypersonic missiles are shaking things up in international space. Global fallout. The unveiling of Iran's hypersonic Fattah 1 missile is now reshaping political pressures and alliances around the world. In the tense climate of the Middle East, this weapon is a symbol of strategic audacity, and it's forcing Iran's regional and international rivals to reassess their calculations. Israel, already grappling with Iranian proxies and ballistic threats, now views Tehran's hypersonic capability as a game-changer that could puncture the assumptions behind multi-layered air defense networks. Governments across the Gulf Cooperation Council are rethinking their own security dependencies, worried that existing shields and U.S. backing may not suffice if hypersonic salvos become routine in a crisis. Internationally, the missile has strained diplomatic channels, complicating negotiations over nuclear limits, sanctions relief, and regional stability. The United States and its NATO partners have voiced deep concern about the proliferation of such advanced systems, even as Tehran insists its missile program is purely defensive. Beyond the Middle East, countries watching Iran's advancement are seeing a technological milestone and a precedent. This could lead to a new arms race in hypersonic and counter-hypersonic technologies. Now, nations are looking to protect their territories and interests, while missiles are flying faster and striking with less warning than ever before. The launch of Iran's Fattah 1 has injected new urgency into an already tense balance of power in the Middle East. Speed, maneuverability, and shrinking reaction times are forcing militaries to rethink both offense and defense. So what stands out to you most about the Fattah 1? Its Mach 15 speed, its thrust vectoring warhead, or the pressure it puts on U.S. bases in the region? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button. We've got more in-depth military analysis coming your way, and you should definitely check out our previous video on the most advanced U.S. missile, the AMRAAM's replacement, and why it's terrifying.